Welcome back to Arcturian Philosophy. This is my second video in the Prayer Warrior series. It helps me in my walk. For those of you who are not familiar with the term, that's a Christian term to describe your path in life. It helps me in my walk to make these videos. It came to me that the only way we would survive, for many of us, the only way that we would survive this winter, being that we are in the end times, we are in that, what you would call the tribulation. It has begun. We are in the end times. Enough people are experiencing these events that we are in the end times. And it came to me that the only way that we would survive this winter, which all of winter, October, think of Halloween, September, October, November, December, it is all full of satanic holidays. And that the only way that we would be able to survive this would be to call on the power of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the most ascended master to ever set foot on the earth. So to those of you who take more of an agnostic perspective to this, or a more new age perspective to this, I'm not trying to preach to you. I'm simply telling you, if you are in a life or death situation, call upon the power of Christ. And I have personal experience in that. When I was told the only way for you to live is to call upon the power of Christ and Archangel Michael, my reaction was, what the fuck? That was what I said at the time. Now you can see I feel quite a bit differently, and have, 3 different Bibles probably, which is typical of a normal Christian home. Normal Christians tend to end up collecting Bibles at random because they're given out so often. Speaking of the Bible, much of it is satanic. Demons have been put into or told to follow around different Bibles. All the Zondervan, all the Gideon, all the major brands of Bibles have demons invoked to follow them and to attempt to possess and pester the person who reads the Bible. So that explains to me why it was actually rather difficult for me to read some of the Bible when I was younger. I was unintentionally sensing that very dark energy. So we must call upon the power of Christ this winter. So now, please pray with me. Dear Father Jesus Christ, please protect us this winter. Give us the power in your name to stand up to these demonic forces, to stand up to the reptilians who might torment us, to stand up to demons, to stand up to thought forms. Give us your armor. Give us your power to cast these things away from us. Give us the ability to create love and harmony in our lives. Give us the ability to be like you, to walk your walk and talk your talk. We come before you, Jesus Christ, and we ask you in your name, let this be done in our lives. Let us prevail over the darkness this winter. Let us prevail and let us show the light to the world. Let us show light to the world, and the darkness can no longer be tolerated here. In your glorious and precious name, I pray. Amen. One thing you may not know is that when I began to pray in the first Prayer Warrior video, I did so spontaneously, and I had not prayed for about 15 years. I had no idea why I began to pray. None. But I cannot actually see, like many psychics, I cannot actually see the thought forms or demonic presences when they are around. I simply experience the effects of whatever they may do to try to torment you. So I believe that my spontaneously praying was my sensing their presences. This is actually exactly what Cryon predicted. For those of you who are Christians who do not know about Cryon, you should begin to listen to him. He talks about Jesus Christ very often, and he is a, quote, magnetic angel. He says, I am Cryon of magnetic service, and he explains that he is here to help assist us, and explains that the end times, now we have the ability to change the end times, to not have them be the horror that is depicted in Revelation. That we have the ability to change this. He explains that when this was written, no one could foresee what was going to happen. You see, prophecy is actually not written in stone. Prophecy is probability. Prophecy is seeing the strongest potential of what will happen, and that may step on some Christians' toes, but prophecy is actually seeing the strongest probability. When Revelation was written, the strongest probabilities that could be seen were destruction. But the human race began to evolve spiritually, and now the probabilities that are seen are of harmony and unity and of us coming together. One thing that I will explain briefly that many Christians need to be aware of is that what you would consider alien species called reptilians does live on our planet. Now, they don't consider themselves aliens because they were born here, except they live underground. They worship Lucifer as their god. They are born into that religion, essentially. And so just as many of us, including myself, were essentially born, for me it was from the age of 6, but I was essentially born into Christianity. It felt that way to me from the age of 6. And so in attempting to tell this species coexisting with us that Lucifer has deceived them, that Lucifer has tricked them, that Lucifer has conned them into selling their souls to him. Because, you see, the things that apply to us also apply to many alien species. With reptilians, they have an entire system of buying and selling of souls. It's practically a science down there. And they are also, they will say this themselves, and in the interview with Lacerda, you can find this too. They are like the serpent because they look like lizards. They look like walking lizards. Some, well, basically without tails, but some do have tails. They are depicted as the serpents in the Bible most of the time. I would personally say that the description in Genesis of how the earth was created, how the universe was created, is a tad bit inaccurate, but I cannot quite put my finger on what would be an accurate representation of how the universe came to be. Now, I used to be, just like every good Christian, who completely, utterly, blindly believed everything the Bible said. But when you actually read the Bible with discernment, you see that it is written by men. You see that men have changed things, that men have taken it and written their own words in it, made things up to control you. When you truly read it with discernment, not blind belief, but discernment, and ask Christ for discernment as you read his own words to know, Christ, did you truly say this? Christ, what do you mean by this? Christ, what should I do when I read this verse? I get a strange feeling. Is this true or is this not true? You must read it with discernment. And so in these, what you would call last days, we are actually in the beginning days. That is a better way to think of this, and that, I think, is something Cryon would encourage. Also, what is occurring right now, if you are skeptical when I say Cryon, as an angel, this is a strange name, the channeler said, you're going to have to change your name, and whoever heard of a magnetic angel, this is actually what Cryon predicted. He predicted to me, he told me, you will have the powers of Mary Magdalene. And I said, basically, what is that? And he told me she was, in fact, like Jesus' wife, and she had the power to cast away demons, and she was very, very powerful. She was feared by the darkness, and you will have that power. You will be able to preach the gospel. You will be able to speak out against these entities. You will be able to go up amongst reptilians and preach to them the gospel of Christ to help them understand why Jesus came, and that salvation is not just for the humans, it is for them as well. Now, let me address the topic of salvation. Salvation is actually a concept designed to control you. Now, this is something I know that is written in the Bible, that they talk about being saved, but the idea is that you are being saved from living in darkness. You are not being saved from going to a heaven or a hell. Heaven is the fifth dimension. Hell is what we perceive as the lower fourth dimension. You see, science and faith are perfectly integrated with each other, and we simply haven't had the understanding of it thus far. And we've been brainwashed by regular, I would say, normal Christianity in a church. We've been brainwashed, and we truly believe that that is the correct way to think. But when we actually use our discernment and actually ask, Christ, I know you are a true person on this planet, and I know that you are there. Let me know what is true and what is not. And in what is applicable for your life, it will be shown to you what is true and what is not. The topic of salvation actually means, I would say, being freed from the bonds of Lucifer, being freed from the bonds of darkness. The reptilians live a very terrible life, and they are tormented by demons. That's why they are driven to attempt to torment us, because they feel so tormented themselves and don't know how to address it within themselves. They are incredibly religious, but religious toward essentially Lucifer, which they consider a god, essentially their god. And they have been tricked into a mindset of bloodlust and blood offerings and sacrifices and attaining power and wealth. They have been tricked into this mindset, which is essentially very much the mindset that you see in the Old Testament. But for this winter, instead of fight them, I will reach out to them. Last winter, I spent the entire winter fighting against them, trying to survive against their constant satanic attacks, constant demonic attacks, constant Luciferian attacks. But this winter, I am wearing what I made this myself. I am calling this my reptilian ascension crown. Reptilians love amethysts, and they love the colors purple and green. They love the color green because that's really kind of the color of their skin. And they love the color purple because it represents the crown chakra and having an open crown chakra. Because you see, to be possessed by Lucifer and the demonic thought forms, you must have a fully open crown chakra, so they worship that concept. So in the style of their belief system, that is what I created. Now, I'm not honoring that. What I am doing is inviting them and showing them that I extend my hand out and invite them to pray with me as I pray in these series for all of us that are involved in this. With that, I believe I will close this episode of Arcturian Philosophy. I hope you are inspired by what I have gone through, and I hope you are inspired by the story that I have to bring. I hope this has helped you, and I will speak to you later.